This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today? It's Monday, May 6th. Hope you guys had a great Cinco de Mayo, or May the 4th be with you over the weekend. A big weekend for some of those niche holidays. Hope you enjoyed that. It's going to be a fun Monday on the Joe Gaither Show. We invite you guys all to join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We invite you to watch us on the Bama Central YouTube channel, or listen to us, subscribe, rate, and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We're going to have hopefully a fun show today. We invite you guys to jump in and join us on the comments at Joe Gaither6. If you want to send a comment, question, query, or complaint right into the chat box, and I will respond to you guys. But we're going to talk Alabama football, Alabama basketball, and Alabama baseball. We're going to have Will Miller join us right about 2 o'clock, right about 25 minutes from now. He's going to talk about the very difficult weekend series over in Starkville. Yeah, the box score said 1-2, but there was a whole lot more hooey going on with the baseball team, and we want to get Will Miller's perspective and Will Miller's insight as to why the weekend was so tough. I mean, obviously, it's always tough going to play at Mississippi State, but when you're dealing with stomach bugs and you're dealing with starters not being able to play and guys coming out of the game early because of sickness, it just makes it that much more difficult. So we'll have Will Miller talk to us about 2 o'clock, 25 minutes from now, to talk Alabama baseball as their season is winding down. I believe there's two more SEC series left, I believe. Will Miller will clarify that for us in just a little bit. What I'm going to do before we get Will Miller on is talk about two huge acquisitions. We're going to talk Alabama football, as Alabama football got Deshaun Jones from Wake Forest. Not officially yet, but according to Matt Zenitz and everybody who's covering the transfer portal and everybody who's covering Alabama transactions, Deshaun Jones, cornerback from Wake Forest, is expected to transfer to Alabama. You can read about that on BamaCentral.com. I will let you know what I saw in Deshaun Jones. I watched a little bit of his tape today, and I put a tweet out over the weekend about Alabama and the cornerback room that got pretty decent traction. So we're going to talk about that really to get the things started. Then we'll talk about Cliff Amore. Oh my gosh, the big red dog. The big red dog is committed to the University of Alabama right there, middle of my Sunday service. We're sitting there in church, and Clifford Amore commits to Alabama over Georgetown, North Carolina, and Kansas State. So we'll talk about what that means for Alabama. On 3 Sports. What? On 3 Sports has Alabama ranked number 1 in basketball preseason. Oh my gosh, absolutely wild. We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about transfer portal, as Alabama has like 1, maybe 2, I think just 1 scholarship spot available. So how is Kalen DeBoer going to use his scholarship spot? And by the end of that conversation, we should have Will Miller on, and then we'll talk baseball as those guys battle through a tough weekend over in Starkville. As always, you can follow us at Joe Gaither6 on your favorite social media machine, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, really any social media that you use, TikTok, Instagram. It's at Joe Gaither6. You can find me there, and let's get right into it with Deshaun Jones. Okay. On Friday, look, I saw several tweets about people being frustrated, Alabama missing out on, you missed out on the corner from Houston, missing out on several defensive backs, several corners who, okay, I'm flirting with Alabama, but no, I'm going to Ole Miss, or I'm going to other programs. And that's fine. This is the transfer portal era. You guys, we talked about it on the show before. We want guys to go where they're going to thrive. But over the weekend, I basically said, why is Alabama having such a tough time getting a cornerback in? There's several layers, and I think Deshaun Jones really fits very, very well. But there's several layers why Alabama was having a kind of a tough time getting a cornerback to come in. One, the main reason is if I'm in the transfer portal and I'm a cornerback, or any position, really, I'm in the transfer portal, the first thing that I'm looking for is opportunity. Where am I going to play? Where is the depth chart either thin or is the depth chart, not as good as my skill sets? When you look at the Alabama cornerback room, and holy smokes, yes, it's very, very inexperienced, but holy smokes, the talent level, it is dripping. It is overflowing with talent. Damani Jackson, cornerback from Southern California, was a former 5-star recruit. Jalen Mbakwe, 5-star recruit. Zay Mincy, 4 5-star recruit, depends on what you want to look at. Xavier Brown, 4 5-star recruit, depending on which recruiting service you want to look at. Jaleel Hurley, a 4 or 5-star recruit. Like, these guys are very, very, very talented. So, if I'm a cornerback in the transfer portal and I only have 1 year left to play, maybe 2 years left to play, likely just one, as a lot of these guys in the spring window are looking to maximize on their last little bit of time in college. If I only have 1 year left to play, I'm going to be pretty hesitant going into a room with a bunch of 4 and 5-star players. Let's just be honest, I am. All right, so that's one aspect. The second aspect is money. You want to, I'm in the transfer portal. I'm in the transfer portal right now. I'm trying to cash in. I'm trying to get one more payday before either I go into the professional ranks or before I go get a real job. And so we factor these two things in. We factor, okay, we're looking for a corner who has experience, Alabama. We're looking for a corner who has experience. We're looking for a corner who, if Jaleel Hurley, Xavier Brown, Zay Mincy, Jalen Mbakwe, if they need more time to marinate and get prepared for the college game, we're looking for a corner who can step right in and play. But let's all be honest with ourselves. 3, 4, 6 weeks into a season, a 5-star freshman developing, playing college football. What happens if the cornerback that we're going to look for, oh my gosh, in 5 or 6 weeks, well, Xavier Brown's better than that guy. Oh, Zay Mincy's better than that guy. Jalen Mbakwe's better than that guy. Look, Kalen DeBoer, it's your first year. You're going to put the guys out there on the field who can help you win, who can help you compete. And so if 3 weeks into a season, 4 weeks into a season, 8 weeks into a season, it doesn't matter. We've seen it before plenty of times in the defensive backfield under Coach Saban. We've seen corners lose their jobs mid-season to better corners or to corners who are up and coming, whether it be due to injury or just play. And so it makes it difficult. Am I going to go into the transfer portal and get a corner who might start for me for 3 weeks, but then have his job overtaken by a freshman? Well, if that's the case, am I really going to offer that transfer portal player a whole lot of money to come in and then sit the bench in week 4 or 5, 6, 7, through the rest of the year? And if I am offering that player a whole lot of money and he is eventually relegated to the bench, is he going to be a stinker in my room? I mean, I don't know. Look, chemistry is something you have to consider. Is he going to be able to be mature enough to say, you know what, I came to Alabama, I worked out, I tried my best, I started the first 4 or 5 games, and now Xavier Brown is in over me. So you've got personality issues and opportunity issues and money issues. And those layers, those issues, I think, complicated Alabama's transfer portal shopping, at least when it came to cornerback. Now, Alabama rectified that this weekend. As part of my tweet, I said, okay, with patience, Alabama is going to find a corner that really fits this mold, that has experience, that can play if need be, but potentially might get passed over by one of these freshmen. Might get passed over. And, with that being said, you're probably not spending tons and tons of money on that player. Now, so Alabama brings in Deshaun Jones over the weekend. And he's one of a couple of corners that we're really shopping around. You had Travis Minor, Kobe Minor out of Indiana. He's not coming anymore. He's not coming to visit anymore, but he was kind of on the radar. Alabama gets Deshaun Jones, and what do you get out of him? He's from Wake Forest. He's got 2 years left of eligibility, and he's played in 22 college games at the Power 5 level. All right, so Wake Forest is not the greatest college football program ever, but he's played in 22 games. Let's see. Look over at his stats. Oh, that's interception returns. Go to the bottom, Joe. 60 total tackles in 22 games. 2 for a loss. No sacks. That's fine. We're not coming off the corner that much at Wake Forest. 3 interceptions, 10 pass defenses. Now, so I put on his tape this morning just because, look, I'm not going to chase every transfer. Oh, Alabama's chasing this transfer. Once they commit, I'm going to look at them and see how they're going to do. Oh, I'm going to look at them and see how they're going to do. But I looked at Deshaun Jones, and you see 6 foot, 180, 185. You see a little guy out there. But on his tape, I see a guy who is not going to get beat over the top. Pretty much all of his tape was keeping his receivers out in front of him. He did a pretty good job keeping the receivers out in front of him. Now, gave up a couple receptions in the highlight tapes that I saw, but everything was in front of him. Doesn't get beat deep. I like that. That's a pretty good trait out of a corner. Pretty sound tackler. Yes, undersized, but he threw his body into pretty much every tackle that I saw. Wrapping up, and you're going to feel all 180 pounds of him. And so what do you get with him? You get a guy who comes into camp. He's probably going to enroll in summer one or summer one later in the month to go ahead and enroll in Alabama. He's got 2 years of eligibility. So let's say, you play the 1 year and Damani Jackson goes into the NFL like he's expecting to go to. I don't know if that's going to work out, if that's exactly how that's going to play out, but I'm sure that's what he's expecting. Damani Jackson goes into the NFL and another cornerback spot opens up. Now, Deshaun Jones, I don't think is, the greatest cornerback ever, but I think he's exactly what you're looking for with this role. He's played two years of college football. He redshirted the first year, so he's a redshirt junior. He's coming in as a redshirt junior. So he's been in the college system for 3 years already. I think that Kalen DeBoer and the coaching staff pretty much hit a home run given the circumstances that we've laid out. You weren't going to go out there and get, who's the greatest cornerback ever? You're not going to go out there and get Pat Surtain. You're not going to go out there and get yourself Deion Sanders. You're not going to go out and get one of these corners. First off, they're not on the market. But second, you're not going to go out and get, oh my gosh, he's the greatest cornerback ever. I think Alabama did a good job getting Deshaun Jones. They found a guy with experience. They found a guy who's, this guy's not going to get beat deep if we have to put him on the field. He's got college experience. He's covered college receivers before, and potentially he's not going to stymie the freshman's development. Because, look, I look at the defensive back room, and I see loads of talent. We just outlined it. I think that even if you didn't get Deshaun Jones, you could have gone sink or swim with these corners that you already have because of the talent that they've got. Now, there would have been some sinking for sure. You got to get beat as a freshman. But I think that, if you can live with the sinking, you would eventually get to the swimming. Think about Terrion Arnold 2 years ago. Terrion had an up and down season. But if you were watching Terrion pretty closely, I think that you saw, oh my gosh, this kid can play. This kid is really instinctual, and this kid has a really good athleticism, and this kid has really good hips. It was just kind of experience for Terrion. And the next year, this past year, Terrion Arnold plays up to the level of what? First-round draft pick. He was the second corner off the board. Yeah, second corner off the board. Had just an incredible year. Was locked down. Everybody talked about Kool-Aid McKinstry, and rightfully so, but Terrion Arnold was that dude this past year. I think you might have been I think you see these three freshmen, Xavier Brown, Zay Mincy, and Jalen Mbakwe on kind of similar tracks. Now, do I think that Deshaun Jones is going to stunt their development? No, I don't. I think that Deshaun Jones is probably a guy who's, look, we talked about it last week when we talked about corners. You want a defensive back who can, Xavier Brown comes off the field and says, oh my gosh, I've never seen this release before. Oh, I've never seen this route combination before. Deshaun Jones offers you that experience and perspective while I think everybody's going to get reps. I think everybody's going to get opportunities. I don't think he's going to be a strong enough player to keep Zay Mincy, Jalen Mbakwe, and Xavier Brown off the field. And so Alabama won this weekend, at least in the transfer portal. Alabama won this weekend football-wise in the transfer portal. I fully believe that. Did they get a 5-star player? No. This kid was a 3-star out of Mount St. Joseph's in Baltimore, Maryland. 6 foot 180, a little bit undersized, got nice length, but a little bit undersized on the weight side. So, look, is he a great player? We don't know, but I think that Alabama fulfilled its need very, very well in the transfer portal with the defensive back room. Now, the bigger news was basketball. Look, you guys all know I love me some Alabama basketball, so I was having pretty big ball yesterday when Cliff Amore committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide. 6'11". Yeah, 6'11". That's a big boy. That's a big man. The big red dog out of Rutgers comes in and basically becomes Alabama's defensive anchor. Golly, you missed Charles Bediako very, very badly last year. And obviously he made his decision to go into the NBA, and it didn't really work out for him with the injury. But Alabama missed their rim protector in a huge way. And so NATO had said, we ain't doing that again this year. Look, he was all in on Cliff Amore. He was all in on Ugano Onyenso. And I think there was a couple other backups if need be. But Alabama got its number one target really in the transfer portal. I know that a lot of people are excited about Chris Youngblood and Aiden Sherrill as well. I mean, you should be. Aiden Sherrill, McDonald's All-American, transferring in from Auburn. That gives a lot of juice to the rivalry. But Cliff Amore, goodness gracious, is going to be so important for Alabama next season. And now, what do I have here? Okay, all right, my notes for Cliff Amore. First off, Nate Oates. Jeff Goodman yesterday goes out there. Jeff Goodman of the Field of 68 goes onto Twitter and basically says that there are 3 programs right now that do not have to pay top dollar NIL to get the prospects and players that they want to. And what were those three programs? UConn, Baylor, and Alabama. Now, look, you can say, Joe, you're so biased about Alabama, but Jeff Goodman covers the entirety of college basketball. He knows what's going on. Now, look, let's not be silly. Cliff Amore did get paid to come to Alabama. He's getting a nice NIL package to come to Alabama. But what was out there for Cliff Amore? $2 million to Georgetown? $1.7 million to North Carolina? Now, look, I love me some Alabama basketball, but as someone who appreciates NCAA basketball and loves it, if you're going to offer me $1.7 million to go to North Carolina, see ya. Put on some Tar Heel blue. I'm going to be over there in Chapel Hill playing in the ACC for sure. That is the power of Nate Oates. That is the influence of Nate Oates and Preston Murphy as well. You have to give a lot of credit to Preston Murphy and my man Blake Byler writing the cover this morning for Bama Central, basically giving a big old bouquet of flowers to Preston Murphy because, man, Preston Murphy, you went out there on a big old win. Preston Murphy for the last 2 weeks, really going on to Twitter, dropping the Clifford the Big Red Dog images and GIFs and photoshopping Clifford the Big Red Dog into photos and doing the kind of back and forth with Roll Tide Willie. Oh, you watching cartoons? Yeah, I'm watching Clifford. And so Preston Murphy was writing huge check. And look, if you didn't get Cliff Amore because Georgetown offered him $2 million and he went to Georgetown, or North Carolina offered him $1.7 million and he went to North Carolina, that's absolutely understandable, I think. But it would have been a bad look. It would have been a real bad look because of the amount of, not verbal because it was online, but the amount of just noise Preston Murphy made about Cliff Amore. Nate Oates is really, now, and what did Cliff Amore say? Cliff said that Nate Oates and the Alabama system is probably the most direct path to the NBA right now. And I think that really college athletes or high school athletes, a lot of elite basketball athletes are seeing that. Look, when Nate Oates came to Alabama originally, people, you're shooting too many threes. Why are you shooting too many threes? Well, buddy, that's the way the NBA game is played. And just like Nick Saban, his main basically recruiting pitch was, we're going to get you direct path to the NFL. How many, $84 billion in contracts is one of those numbers that he threw out there. Look, for many years, it was Nick Saban, we're getting you to the NFL. 3 years and out, right into the NFL. Nate Oates has been doing the same thing for the last 5 years. Nate Oates enhanced Herb Jones's value. Now, Herb did it himself as well, but Nate Oates enhanced Herb Jones' value, Kyra Lewis's value, put J.D. Davison into the league. J.D., goodness gracious, had a difficult year, but went on into the NBA, made Josh Primo a lottery pick. Brandon Miller, number 2 overall, right? Number 2 overall in the running for NBA Rookie of the Year. Look, the Nate Oates system has really, really enhanced these player skill sets and put the best parts of these player skill sets on display for the NBA. And so, well, look, Cliff More's not going to be jacking up a bunch of threes next year. He's not going to do that in the NBA either. Cliff More's going to be a rim protector in the NBA. Cliff More's going to be pick and roll, rolling to the rim, catching lob passes, and dunking it in. Cliff More's going to be offensive and defensive rebounding, kicking it out to shooters in the NBA. And so why not do that 1 year early right here in Alabama and get practice? Okay, this is how I handle drop coverage. This is how I handle, rim protection. This is how I rim run effectively for the NBA. And so because of that, Nate Oates is getting a discount. Look, I'm not a fool, and I'm not going to try to convince you that Alabama is not paying players in the NIL era. They absolutely are. But as far as maximum dollar amount, no, Alabama's not having to come over the top of some of these other universities because of Nate Oates and because of the system that Alabama is running. And so it's just so incredible and so exciting to see the development of the Nate Oates system. You're now going into year number 6, right? And so you've seen it grow year after year after year, and you've seen, okay, here's one McDonald's All-American. Oh, this year Alabama's getting 2 McDonald's All-Americans. And now this season you got 3. Aiden Sherrill, Darian Reed, and Aiden Holloway. Like the roster's loaded. I think it might be the most talented roster that's ever been assembled in Alabama. In Tuscaloosa, that is. And granted, there's still one more piece to go. It's Mark Sears, but let's go over this roster. Let me pull up my numbers really quickly right there. Okay, so if Mark Sears returns, your roster is Aiden Sherrill, Darian Reed, Naz Cunningham, LeBaron Philon, Houston Millette, Chris Youngblood, Aiden Holloway, Jaron Stevenson, Latrell Wrightsell, Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, Mohamed Diabate, and Cliff Amori. I got confused last week a couple of times when I thought that Muhammad Wagi was not going into the transfer portal, but he is in the transfer portal. So Alabama's at 13 if Mark Sears and Jaron Stevenson return. And you're looking at, I think, maybe the deepest roster in college basketball. And you can say, oh, Joe, you're biased. Oh, Joe, you don't know what you're talking about. You're only looking at Alabama. Okay, fine. Let's go to a national perspective. On 3 Sports. On 3 Sports, they cover pretty much everything, all nationwide. On 3 Sports, where is it? On 3 Sports has their preseason way too early, top 25 on 3 Sports, basketball. Oh, I can get it right there. And who is number 1? Number 1 is the Alabama Crimson Tide. What in the world? Yeah, on 3 Sports, way too early, college basketball top 25. Here you go. Alabama, Kansas, Houston, UConn, Baylor, and Duke. What? There's your top 6. Now, you got to acknowledge little brother Auburn at 9 and the bitter rival Creighton at 10. But goodness gracious, did you ever think that, look, this isn't the football poll. This isn't a football poll. It's a basketball poll. Absolutely absurd, and you should just be so excited. Look, I'm not going to tell you how you should feel. I am so excited to cover this Alabama basketball team next year because, look, you're going to get guys who don't get minutes next year who could be legitimate starters throughout college basketball. Of course, you want things to have to break your way. Of course, you have to go through the entire grind of the season. Everybody's got to stay healthy, of course. But the expectations are through the roof now. Absolutely through the roof. I saw somebody a little while ago, about a week ago, say, "Oh, if Alabama gets Cliff Amori, then the expectation is Final Four or bust." Now, look, you think that's a little much? I think that's a little bit fan talk. I don't think there's ever been really that many. That might be hyperbole. I don't think there's been very many teams that are Final Four or bust. Let's just say that. But this roster absolutely could be. I expect Alabama to be competitive for the SEC once again, to be, 1 or 2, to win the league. Let's win. I think Alabama can win the league for sure. Now, things have to play out. How many months do we have until November, till basketball actually gets started? That leaves a lot of room for things to change. But there's lots of reasons to be excited about this Alabama basketball team, and I'd like to encourage you to go and read my friend Blake Byler's piece, giving flowers to Preston Murphy. Because, look, if Cliff Amori says, oh, well, I'm going to be Carolina Blue or I'm going to Georgetown, more power to him. Good for you. You can make whatever decision that you'd like to. But that would have been a lot of egg on the face of Preston Murphy. And so you avoid the egg and you basically walk around like a champion because Preston Murphy, once again, lands a huge recruit. I mean, look at this. Preston Murphy's been involved in all 3 McDonald's All-Americans. He was involved in Houston Millette, maybe the best spot-up shooter in college basketball last year. He was involved in he has been involved in Grant Nelson's return. You thought about last year losing Brian Hodgson and losing Antoine Petway, Alabama legend Antoine Petway, to other head coaching jobs, and wish them success. And you thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to recruit without Petway and without Hodgson? I think Preston Murphy is worth every dollar and more. Whatever you need to do, Coach Nato, it's to make him feel appreciated and valued. I would encourage you to do that. Let's hit one more topic before we bring in our friend Will Miller. And you can follow Will Miller at Real WB Miller for all of your Alabama baseball coverage and more. He's going to be up in Hoover covering the SEC baseball tournament. I will be as well, but Will is much more of an expert. Last topic before we bring on Mr. Miller is one more scholarship opening for Alabama football. There's only one. I mean, look, now granted, the numbers can be fudged here and there, but if the numbers are what I am seeing, and I trust my eye, then you're at 84. You're at 84 and you have one scholarship remaining to fill. And so how do you fill it? You can look at Joe at my Twitter right now, and I've got a poll up at Joe Gaither 6. Do you fill the roster spot with Gino Vandemark, interior offensive lineman from Michigan State, or do you fill it with Khalil Jacobs, South Alabama linebacker? We've talked about the needs last week on the show before. We talked about the third inside linebacker being probably a problem for Alabama. If Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson don't stay healthy through the year, how much do you trust Jordan Jefferson? How much do you trust Jeremiah Alexander or Justin Okoronkwo? 3 guys that are not really done it at the college level for various reasons, all 3 of them for different reasons. But how much do you trust those guys to play third inside linebacker to step in for, hopefully not, but potentially an injured Jihad Campbell and or Deontay Lawson? Is that the direction you go? Or are you really concerned about the offensive line? Is that the area that you go? Gino Vandemark played up at Michigan State for Chris Kapilovich, interior offensive line. He played, 6-7 games last year for Michigan State at right guard. And now, obviously, Michigan State was not amazing last year, but you got a Power 5 starter. He did get hurt. He goes into the transfer portal in December, withdrew from the transfer portal, and handled spring practice at Michigan State. Most recently, a couple days ago, just before the transfer deadline, last Monday, Tuesday, he goes back into the transfer portal. The connections to Chris Kapilovich are obvious, and Gino Vandemark seems like there's a lot of smoke and mutual interest between the 2 parties. I think that's the way you go because of the, oh my gosh, you know what you got in Jihad Campbell, you know what you got in Deontay Lawson. Behind him, you've got a lot of interesting potential. We'll say it that way. Interesting potential. You don't know what you have on the interior offensive line, in my opinion, outside of course, Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts. Duh, those positions are set. I'm talking mostly center, the most interior offensive line man, the center. That's where my biggest concern is. Of course, Parker Brailsford comes in to Alabama by way of the transfer portal, but basically doesn't do anything in spring practice. Let's just be honest. Doesn't really do anything because he's away from the program, working out issues, dealing with, does this new scheme, does the Chris Kapilovich scheme fit me? Or did I make a mistake? I think that you've got question marks around Parker Brailsford. Coach Kalen DeBoer has basically said, has exuded confidence that Parker Brailsford is going to come back to Alabama and be plugged right in and play and going to be just fine. And look, I've got no reason to not believe Kalen DeBoer, but what if he's wrong? What if, week 1, week 2, second week of fall practice, something happened? I don't know. Anything can happen. What are you going to do at center? Are you going to turn to your 3 freshmen? Are you going to turn to William Sanders, Joe Ionato, or Casey Poe and say, hey, guys, you guys didn't snap in high school, but you've been snapping all summer long. Are you ready to be a starter at the Power 5 level? Oh, man, I love those three guys, and I think those three guys have a lot of potential and probably will contribute heavily when they're ready. I don't know about the prospect of throwing a true freshman in there at center, whether it be week 1, week 10, whatever the case may be. And so Gino Vandemark becomes probably your most important target at this point now that you've got the cornerback position filled. You get Gino Vandemark. He plays right guard at Michigan State. He is snapped before. He's played 2 years of college football. Oh, no, 3 years of college football. Excuse me. 3 years of college football. He was 2021 to 24, right? So he's played Power 5 football for quite some time. You teach him to snap. You make him look. You're not going to take over Tyler Booker's position. That's not an option, sir. And you're probably not going to take over Jaden Roberts' position. Very unlikely. But you need a quality backup center, and might be a starting center because I don't know. I don't have real confidence. Now, I can absolutely be wrong about Parker Brailsford. He could start all, 12 regular season games and be amazing. He could be the anchor, and this could be a Joe Moore winning offensive line, just like last year's Washington offensive line. But there's a lot of question marks, and I think Alabama needs to answer that question mark in the transfer portal with Gino Vandemark. Now, last thing, and Will Miller, I'm going to bring you in here because this is just more conceptual. My friend Will Miller is joined us. You follow him at Real WB Miller. Will, I'm doing research on Gino Vandemark, right? And I'm doing research on Deshaun Jones, the corner from Wake Forest. I just have a problem with these colleges and their athletic websites. Okay, look, I know the transfer portal is hard. I know the transfer portal is complicated. And I know the transfer portal maybe – incite some feelings, inside the program. But I got a problem with you 404ing these guys' pages. I'm going to look up Gino Vandemark to try to find out what can I find out about you on Michigan State's website. And how many games did you start? Where did you play? Give me some information. And on the Michigan State website, 404, page not found. I'm like, what? Was this guy like a criminal up at Michigan State, up in East Lansing? Is that why you're 404ing him? Is that why you're erasing him from your program? Look, you can go onto RollTide.com and look at the 2013 Alabama football roster, and you can see all of those guys' profiles. And I don't know, some of those guys may not have been Saints. Okay, but their profiles are still up there. And you can go right now to the 2023 Alabama football roster, and you can look up guys who have gone into the transfer portal. Kendrick Blackshire, just for an example. And his page is still active. Because, come on, what are we doing, athletic programs? We're just, you're transferring out. Everything you did is erased. There may not be any emotion tied to it, but it certainly feels vindictive, Will Miller. And for that, I have a problem. How are you, sir? How's your day going?
I'm doing good, Joe. And while you were talking just then, I did some research of my own. I found that you can still find the Jai Hall's page on RollTide.com. So make of that what you will. Case in point, right there. There it goes. Just loaded up. As well as I do, the new RollTide.com template is another problem in and of itself. But feeling good.
Racing these guys from your program. They played there for a year or two or whatever the case may be.
Maybe even longer, yeah. And I think the transfer portal it's just one of those instances where you never really know how the departing schools are going to respond. But it does seem, I don't know, it kind of does seem strange to me as well because, like I get it. You said if a guy does criminal activity or something to that effect, that's one thing. But say I transfer say I'm at an FCS school and I want to transfer to a Big Ten school because they're going to offer me a starting spot. Okay, that's just the nature of the beast now in some cases. Did I do something bad? A lot of people would say no, but that's another interesting philosophical question.
So if you are one of these university page runners and you're listening to the Joe Gaither show, first off, I appreciate you. But secondly, leave these daggum kids' pages up so we can research them. It's no problem. I don't know. Maybe it's a tech backend thing that I don't understand because I'm not really on that side. I don't know if it's taking up bandwidth in their servers or whatever, but come on, it seems silly.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess it's weird because sometimes they go the other way, right? Sometimes they can go from bigger schools to smaller schools. I guess this all goes back to the main thing around the transfer portal, which is it's a whole wide world of fun. You never really know what's coming next.
Absolutely. Well, my friend Will Miller is joining us today, and please follow him on the social medias at RealWB and Will Miller is all over all things Alabama for us right here at Bama Central, but right now his focus is Alabama baseball. And so we want to bring him on because Alabama baseball is coming to the business end of the season. There's two more SEC series left. The boys are going to Auburn to round it out, but have LSU coming into town this weekend. So you got two more series left. But I really want to bring you on to talk about this past weekend. Alabama goes to Starkville. And okay, Alabama baseball has been up and down, mostly up at home, kind of down on the road, a little rocky on the road, but that's what life in the SEC. Welcome to the SEC. You go over to Starkville and you end up you get run ruled in the first game, 13-3 in 7 innings. You lose in the second game, 8-1 on Saturday, but you win Sunday, 10-5. Okay, so I'm a casual. As a casual, I see the box scores and I see 1 and 2. That's not the whole story. That's not really what happened. Yes, they lost, but tell us about really, first off, I think the mental fortitude of these players to battle through the weekend and to win the Sunday game.
Yeah, mental fortitude is a great way to put it. It's always tough going to Starkville, Mississippi State, especially when they're playing well as they are right now. A real statement year for that coaching staff and that team after a really, really rough go last year. In 2022 really was not that good either. They have answered the bell, and that's even before you get to the challenges that this Alabama team faced over the weekend. They ate some bad hotel food is the belief, and a lot of their players, a majority of their players were suffering from varying degrees of what I'd have to believe is food poisoning, illness, more or less. Saturday saw some of the worst of it. You had 3 starters off the lineup card to start the game, 3 more exit in the middle of the game. They powered through, did what they could. The pitchers were, affected as well. You had Ben Hess couldn't even make the trip to the ballpark on Saturday, and he threw 4 innings of 1-run ball yesterday. I mean, the grit's off the charts. And that's a guy who needed a good outing as much as anyone, too, with some of the tough sledding that he's had as of lately, and talk about delivering in that sense. But winning one would have been good anyway, but that's a great win. When you look back at the schedule this season, they have, a top 5 strength of schedule in the country. Their RPI is up there too because of, where they play, and they've done well against these ranked teams. And, the road games, like you said at the beginning, Joe, that's an area where all except kind of Kentucky has struggled. You had Texas A&M as the number 1 team go and lose a series to LSU, who's really struggled to find their footing in the SEC, but they took that series at Alex Box Stadium, which is another of the top environments in college baseball. It took a lot for Alabama to even show up to the field at Duty Noble Field this weekend, let alone win a game and put up double digits in that game. And I think that, Mississippi State, this was a big series for them too. These are teams that hope to host a regional. Mississippi State ranked number 16 right now, right there on that cut line. If those rankings at that moment were to determine the national seeds, right there on that cut line, this was an important series. And Alabama had to overcome a lot to be able to get that win on Sunday yesterday. And they did it. But they have a really challenging midweek against Troy coming up tomorrow too. Troy playing better than anybody in the country, in my opinion, and we know about my mid-major bias on this show. But they are ranked right now. They came back from 6 runs down in the 9th inning against ranked Louisiana yesterday, tied the game, won that series, swept Coastal Carolina clean out of the D1 rankings, which that's one of the preeminent teams, not just mid-majors, but teams in college baseball over the past 10 years or so. They won a national championship. Skylar Meade's got it going over there. I've said it for a long time. He's not going to be there forever. But Alabama's got their work cut out for them in the midweek this week. But this past weekend was an incredible effort to even get one.
All right, so let's talk about this past weekend because of the effort. First off, what do you like when you're sick, Will?
What am I like? Well, I know this may be a dude answer, but I'm a total whiner.
Absolutely.
Probably don't get out of bed much. I'm really tired. I probably complain a lot. The work. You know the deal. We're getting to that point in the year also where everybody's allergies are acting up, and nobody cares for that either. It's not fun. I'm certainly not going to be able to go out and play 3 games of baseball in, the scorching late spring weather in Starkville, Mississippi in front of, 5 figures of fans. I mean, it's a tough ask for anybody. Like I said, even when you're healthy, but me personally, I couldn't do it when I was sick like that.
Yeah, I'd go into total infant mode. I need help. Save me. Somebody feed me. Give me water. I can't get out of bed. Like total infant. Not functional. I don't get sick very often. Praise the Lord. Thank you for that. But yeah, not functional. Oh, I have a tummy ache. I'm not going to be getting out of bed. And these gentlemen are throwing up, are losing fluids, are dehydrated through the weekend. Why didn't the SEC step in and say, okay, let's push the Thursday game to Friday. Let's push the Friday or audible the Saturday game to Sunday and do a double. Why were there no double headers considered? Why was there no real schedule adjustments considered?
I'd have to believe it's because of weather. There were weather concerns throughout the weekend. We know it rained really, really hard on Friday. It's a miracle that game started on time. At 6 p.m. Central. They had weather concerns yesterday, which caused the first pitch time to be moved up an hour from what it initially was. They had a lightning delay, not a long delay, in the bottom of the 8th inning of the game. I think that the weather concerns were such that they didn't want to risk anything else happening to the series because there was already somewhat of an expectation that weather would rear its ugly head. That'd be my best guess. Like I said, tough situation for all concerned. Logistics, it can account for weather, right? It can't really account for eating bad hotel food at times, right?
All right. So the second question is, and this might be a soft question. It may not be a good mindset to have, but was there ever any considerations of Rob Vaughn saying, you know what, I don't have a roster to play today. We're forfeiting.
I wouldn't think so. Like I said, Saturday was the worst day from a roster standpoint. And even then, they had the bench. The players were almost all sick. There's no denying that. And they soldiered through it as best they could. But they were physically able to play in the strictest terms, and they did that. So that's my thought process there. And I doubt they'd want to cancel a game because, you want to take your shot, right? You want to have the opportunity to go in there. And Alabama did get on the board first in that Saturday game with a home run. So, you never really know what can happen. You can have the expectations, you can have the belief based on the circumstances, but I guess you never know, and that's why you play the games. I don't think they would have wanted to cancel the games, to tell you the truth.
All right, so you got 2 more series left. LSU is coming to town this weekend, and Alabama's going to Auburn to finish it on up. The series results, the 1-2 results, really, it doesn't matter, sick or not. You're 1-2 over the weekend. That's the result. Because of that, you fall out of the top 25 in the polls as they're released today. And you alluded to Mississippi State's kind of quest to host a regional. It seems like Alabama's quest to host a regional is fading pretty quickly. Now, I was there just like you were last year. Oh, my gosh, Sewell Thomas Stadium was incredible last year hosting a regional. Is there any hope? Is there any path for Alabama to get back into that let's host a regional conversation?
There absolutely is. The toughest part of that conversation is the comparative lack of road success. And like I said, that's afflicting the wider landscape of the conference as well. But you have big SEC series that are coming up in the sense that these teams aren't having the best years. You have Auburn's down in the dumps in the conference slate right now. LSU had that big series win against Texas A&M, but they have been, they've been straddling that line of will we, won't we, in terms of going to Hoover, and definitely haven't really delivered on the preseason expectations. But that's a short trip, I guess. But these are winnable games, and the tougher of the two is at home. You have the midweek on the road against Troy tomorrow. If Alabama can win that game, that's going to look really, really good on the resume. Midweeks are kind of anything goes for this Alabama program, as you've seen over the last number of years. And even this year, they've had a couple of rough patches, some of them recent. So you never know, right? But and I feel like I've said that a lot. But the opportunity is there. I mean, I would almost suggest winning out in the regular season if they can go on that kind of bender. and then winning 2 or 3 in Hoover would probably put them in that range, I guess, because, the RPI matters, strength of schedule matters. Those are things that are going to be heavily weighed by the selection committee, regardless of where your team is on that Monday. That the selection show will ultimately grace us. And the opportunity is there. It's not that there's a lot of room for error. Can't mess it up. And I don't know that I see it happening, just because it's difficult to say, hey, go win, 6, 7, 8 games in a row and then make a statement in Hoover, because they had success in Hoover last year, but we thought they were higher up on the totem pole than they actually ended up being when the bracket actually came down at that point in time. So the best thing to do is win them all.
Wasn't that kind of the way it played out for Alabama baseball last year, as they went on a little bit of a streak towards the end to get that regional?
Yes, they won that Vanderbilt series the week that Brad Bohannon was let go, which was a year ago this time frame. A year ago today was the end of that Vanderbilt series. And then they swept A&M. They won a couple in Hoover, and a lot of people thought they'd be on that 13, 14, maybe even 12 range. Their RPI was like 12, if I'm not mistaken. They ended up being number 16, which was the last national seed, which is something that not a lot of people were happy about. And that's why I say that margin for error practically doesn't exist at this moment in time.
All right, so you look through the SEC standings, and LSU 31-18 overall, 5-9 on the road as they come into Tuscaloosa. Auburn 22-24 overall. Oh my gosh, not good. 4-20 in conference. So it's all there to be had for this Alabama baseball team. What's, to you, the biggest key to make these last 2 weeks very successful?
Well, health, obviously. I would hope it doesn't take them weeks to recover from a bout of food poisoning, but it was pretty rough, obviously. Health is key anyway. You're at a point in the year where you've played close to 50 games at this point, and that schedule wears on you. So that's another aspect in which health is important. Maintaining the routine is important. They do have to maximize the pitching they have. We've talked a lot about how that group has had some injuries befall them. And those were really unfortunate in a lot of cases. They do have to maximize what they have. They need Ben Hess to go out there from here on out and do what he did against Mississippi State. He had a few starts in conference play that weren't very befitting of what he's been in the past, what he's shown to be capable of. But to get back, getting back on track is something that I guess the coaching staff would welcome with open arms, because this is a guy that's got all the potential in the world. They need Greg Ferrone to keep his strong run of form up. He didn't have a very good day on Friday against Mississippi State. They needed all from Zane Adams, this freshman lefty that's kind of taken the rotation by storm. He's had 2 different starts in SEC play where he's gone 7 innings. He went 8 shutout innings against number 1 Arkansas. They need every bit of that. They need this midweek tomorrow night. I really think this is one of the most important games on this schedule, what it's turned into based on how well Troy is playing. That team is super regional good right now, in my honest opinion. And that's not something you just hear from me.
The rankings reflect it. Number 21 right now.
Mm-hmm. They just have to rise to the occasion. I mean, they have, like I said, this is a winnable part of the slate. I mean, the SEC schedule for this Alabama team was very front-loaded, and it let off a bit after Texas A&M, with the exception of the Mississippi State series that we've just talked about. But this is an opportunity for Alabama again to make a statement, just like they did last year. And the biggest thing is rising to that, being healthy, staying in that routine, and maximizing everything they can out of this pitching staff.
All right, so I'm going to pretend to be the casual here again. Alabama baseball, we hosted a regional last year. We're not hosting a regional this year. What the heck, Rob Bond? First year grade, first year. We're right here at the end. You got two more series, and then the postseason. What has been the Rob Bond experiment? Not experiment, but really the start of the Rob Bond era to you, as someone who's been pretty much right there for the whole time, for the whole thing.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job adjusting to the SEC. You knew there would be a learning curve. He was very successful at Maryland. Some of the most success they've had was under him. And this is a guy that's not even 40 years old yet, by the way. And it's definitely been a situation where I have no doubt that, this experience is kind of molding him in terms of he has his vision for the direction of this program and these players, which he's shared at length for a while now. But it changes once you start playing the games, and that has happened. I think that they've done a really good job. This is a tough slate. Like I said, they had a really, really difficult schedule, and that's life in the SEC. I mean, all respect to the Big Ten. Big Ten baseball is not SEC baseball. The Sun Belt probably clears the Big Ten in baseball, and that's not even me being biased towards mid majors either. It's just the categorical truth at this juncture. Things are very different, but I talked earlier, about rising to the challenge. I think he's risen to the challenge. I think that he has embraced taking over this Alabama program, and he wants to get back to Omaha. He's instilled that in his players. He wants Alabama to eventually be a program that year in, year out is, contending for berths in Omaha, not just, scratching and clawing the bubble of making the NCAA tournament like we've seen, in years preceding last year. And I think that, he's aware of that situation. We talked a lot when Kalen DeVore got hired about how he has to be aware of the magnitude of leading an Alabama athletics program. I think that obviously it may not be exactly apples to apples in every sense of the word, but Rob Vaughn's been aware of that. His coaching has reflected it. This team really is a good baseball team. And I think that, they could do something special, if they were to get hot in the NCAA tournament. And that's the goal. And they've stayed committed to those goals, and he's been at the forefront of that.
We're talking to Will Miller. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at RealWB Miller for all your Alabama baseball coverage and more. Will, we're going to get you out of here on two things. First, what was your reaction yesterday? Cliff Amore says, I'm going to be coming to Tuscaloosa.
Well, I want to shout out Blake Byler for his great piece this morning about Preston Murphy. I heard you talking about it a few minutes ago, but if you're just tuning in here at the end of the show, give that a read. I did retweet it. And Preston Murphy, he posted all those Clifford graphics. If that had gone in another direction, he might not have come out of that looking good. But regardless of that, that's water under the bridge now. Alabama gets the rim protector. They get that coveted big that they wanted to get in the portal. And they've done portaling other than Cliff, obviously, but which you've talked about. But this changes things for this roster. We talked about in social media as a buzz about what this might mean in particular for Grant Nelson. Adjusting to a different role that might highlight his skill set a little bit more, which is another of the more indirect implications that I think is on the top of the list of why this was just so important. But just a huge get. Nate Oates and his staff, they just continue to recruit, whether it be, the high school level, the youth level versus the portal. And it's definitely a change of things for Alabama basketball. I mean, you saw, that Carolina tweet, that particular tweet, the one I'm talking about. And I mean, 5 years ago, unthinkable to imagine Alabama basketball being talked about in that frame of reference.
All right, so last thing, you're following Real WB Miller on the Twitter machine, but Will is following me at Joe Gaither 6, and that's where you can find my poll. So, Will, I'm going to put you on the spot. Alabama football has one scholarship spot remaining.
I voted for the South Alabama kid.
You voted for Khalil Jacobs over.
I thought that chemistry with Kane would be an important piece. How he could integrate into this defense from the rapport he already has. With his defensive coordinator and former head coach, I think that pushes him over the edge for me.
That's Will Miller, and he's voting for Khalil Jacobs. You can vote right there at Joe Gaither 6, either Khalil Jacobs, the South Alabama linebacker, or Gino Vandemark. I'm going to have to get that name imprinted into my brain. Gino Vandemark, interior offensive lineman from Michigan State. Those seem to be the two targets for Alabama football. We'll see which one of them gets locked in, if either of them get locked in the next couple of days. Will, I appreciate your time, man. We're going to get out of here for the day. Hope you have a great day. Let everybody know anything else you're working on.
Yeah, you too, Joe. Thank you for having me on. As always, and I've said this last couple of times, baseball's in the home stretch. Keep up with we'll have your coverage these last couple of series. We'll have your coverage in Hoover, and whatever postseason fate awaits this team, we'll have you dialed in for every bit of it.
Absolutely. That's Will Miller. You're following him at Real WB Miller. I'm Joe Gaither. You're following me at Joe Gaither6. We're going to get out of here for the day. We had a lot of fun on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We appreciate everybody who has subscribed, rated, and reviewed the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon, or watching the show on the Bama Central YouTube channel or at Joe Gaither6. We'll get out of here for the day. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.